Have you ever felt like people had turned against you and wanted to figure out if it were true? Stay tuned for a reading that can help. Hi everybody, I'm Sue Ellen Clayton. Welcome to my channel where we're learning how to read tarot one card at a time. In today's reading, we'll be using a 5-card motivation spread to answer the question, are my children and their father working together to destroy me? I will be using the Radiant Rider-Waite Tarot, and there is a link below. This question was posted anonymously online by a woman who I will call Wendy. Her question was, are my children and their father working together to destroy me? She doesn't give any other information. I'm assuming that she's referring to some kind of emotional destruction versus them trying to poison her or something, but that's just my guess. I'm also guessing at what Wendy could mean by emotional destruction. My guess is that they betrayed her trust or are engaged in some type of public humiliation. So perhaps her ex has filed for divorce and unflattering details about her marriage and parenting style have been made public. Wendy drew 5 cards. She did not mention using a spread. However, I will be using the 4-card motivation spread to look at her ex's and children's motivations. The 5th card was from the bottom of the deck. Card number 1 looks at the underlying motivations of Wendy's children's action. Wendy drew the Hanged Man. Card number 2 looks at the underlying motivations of Wendy's ex's actions. Wendy drew the 7 of Wands. Card number 3 looks at how Wendy's children and their father's underlying motivations align or conflict with each other. Wendy drew the 10 of Swords. Card number 4 looks at how Wendy can respond with clarity and strength. Wendy drew Justice. Card number 5 looks at underlying issues that Wendy might not be aware of. Wendy drew the 5 of Wands. Let's begin by looking at my first impression, and that is that I see a lot of conflict. In the 7 of Wands, we see a man fighting off 6 people who are coming towards him. In the 5 of Wands, we see 5 young men fighting among themselves. And in the 10 of Swords, we see somebody who's been stabbed to death by 10 swords. These are all the actions of very unhappy people. I think the Justice card is interesting as it tells us that Wendy will get what she deserves. So it makes me wonder if she's done something to cause this situation. And maybe this reading will help her to see things differently, as the Hanged Man is about seeing things from a different perspective. The 3 minor arcana cards are Wands, which are about actions, and Swords, which are about thoughts. It's interesting that we don't see any cups, which represent love, in the reading. So there's no longer any love between Wendy and her family. Now let's look at each card individually. Card number 1 looks at the underlying motivations of Wendy's children's actions. Wendy drew the Hanged Man. I think that Wendy's children want to turn her world upside down as payback for something that she's done. The Hanged Man tells me that Wendy is in a difficult situation and needs to see things from a new perspective. As a wife and mother, I can say that I think most of us want to believe the best about our partners and our children. So we expect that reaching the conclusion that they are trying to destroy her was probably incredibly difficult. I'm guessing that Wendy believed that she had a good relationship with her ex and her kids. So it probably took something really major to happen for Wendy to conclude that they were trying to destroy her. The Hanged Man is based on 12th century paintings when Jesus was shown hanging upside down on a cross. The Hanged Man can also represent martyrdom, so I think that Wendy's family want to punish her for something that she has done to them, or that Wendy feels like she has given everything to her family and is being unjustly treated. According to WebMD, martyr complex is a recognized psychological pattern. It's marked by self-sacrifice and service to others at your own expense. For example, you spend so much time caregiving that you destroy your own health. Martyrdom can include minimizing your accomplishments and making sacrifices because it makes you feel good and not for the praise. In my experience, that's pretty much the definition of motherhood. But there can be a dark side to doing everything for your kids, and that is that it doesn't allow children to grow up. When my kids were young, we spent a fair bit of time with someone who had a very different parenting philosophy than I had. She was extremely attentive to her children and fussed over them constantly. If they wanted a snack, she'd cut up their fruits and vegetables way into their teens. Meanwhile, my kids were a lot more independent and learned to cook and do laundry before they turned 10, which some people might consider to be cruel. However, now her children are in their mid to late 20s and still living at home, which is not uncommon these days, but she's still cooking for them and doing their laundry. She hasn't set them on the path to adulthood. We haven't spoken in many years, and I'm not sure if her kids appreciate her attentiveness or resent her for it. Another part of being a martyr is that martyrs are betrayed. This goes both ways. Wendy might feel betrayed by her family. Wendy could feel like she put her heart and soul into her family, and they didn't appreciate it. Or Wendy's family might feel like she betrayed them. Perhaps they believe that Wendy put far more energy into her job than parenting. Or maybe Wendy had an affair or lost all of the family money due to a gambling addiction. Or perhaps she discovered that one of her family members was selling drugs and called the police, and now she is getting blamed for the destruction of her family unit. In summary, I believe that Wendy's family wanted to turn her world upside down. I'm not sure if it was because she was too solicitous and didn't give them an opportunity to grow up, or if her actions were much more serious and seen as destroying the family unit. Card number 2 looks at underlying motivations of Wendy's ex's actions. Wendy drew the 7 of Wands. The first thing I wanted to figure out was who the figure on the card represented. Was it the ex or was it Wendy? When I don't know, as I didn't in this case, I rely on my pendulum. If you're not familiar with a pendulum, you can see a picture on the screen. It's a weighted object to which you can ask yes/no questions. So I look at the guy in green and ask, does this represent Wendy? And you get a yes, no, or I don't know answer. In this case, I got a no. When I asked if it represented the ex, I got a yes. I have a whole video on how to use a pendulum, which I'll link to below. So here we see Wendy's ex trying to defend himself from 6 wands that are coming towards him. Wands are about actions, and this card tells us that the ex's underlying motivations are a response to Wendy's actions. He's trying to face her actions with bravery and courage. She put him in a position where he's trying to be vigilant, to stand up for what he believes in, and to defend himself. The question is, what did Wendy do to make him feel so threatened? I decided to Google the most common issues addressed in family therapy. This article from the Caris Health website describes a few things that could have happened. The first common issue is communication breakdown, which is often based on poor listening skills, assumptions, and emotional barriers. So it's quite possible that Wendy's ex felt that she wasn't listening to him, or she wasn't willing to take action on a family situation, such as going to counseling. Another group of common issues are around marital problems. These could include infidelity, financial problems, or a feeling of growing apart. So perhaps Wendy had an affair, or she alienated his trust around finances and used her kids' college fund to buy a beach house. Other issues can include family changes brought upon by grief and loss, or by more positive but still stressful situations like moving or having a new baby. Regardless of what the issues were, I believe that her ex feels that he has good reason to want Wendy to suffer as much as he has. I don't think that Wendy's ex is a bad person. We see him standing on green grass that is on top of a rock formation. Rocks are about dependability, so we can assume that he is a very solid individual. Rocks are also about obstacles, which he's clearly facing. He is higher than the others, which puts him in a position of power. However, there are 2 indications that his footing isn't as strong as it could be. The first is the uneven grass. He's standing over top of a stream, and it looks like he's having a hard time balancing. The other indication of a problem is that he's wearing 2 different types of footwear. This could mean that he was surprised by what happened, as the card indicates that he didn't have time to get dressed. It could also mean that his desires and actions are not aligned. So, although he's fighting Wendy, he'd rather not be in this situation and would prefer that his family unit stay intact. In summary, I think that the ex is a good person. He doesn't want to be in this position. Sadly, he has a good reason for fighting with Wendy. Card number 3 looks at how Wendy's children and their father's underlying motivations align or conflict with each other. Wendy drew the Ten of Swords. The Ten of Swords is a card about reaching the end of your journey and hitting rock bottom. I think that is how Wendy's children and ex all feel, and that their goals of destroying Wendy are aligned. The reason I think this is because the swords are at different heights and angles, although they are all along Wendy's back. So to me, that indicates that different people of different heights and strengths are sticking in the swords. I think the card symbolizes that they feel like they've been betrayed by Wendy. She has literally stabbed them in the back. Swords are about thoughts, and tens represent the culmination of their physical, emotional, or spiritual experience. It indicates that her family has experienced a great deal of suffering, and they now believe it's time for Wendy to suffer too. In summary, I think that Wendy's children and ex are in agreement that she's done some pretty terrible stuff to them. Whatever it is, it's bad enough that they believe that Wendy deserves to be destroyed.
You've made it this far in the video, and I want to stop and ask for a favor if you're not already a subscriber, and that is to please hit the subscribe button. It's free for you, and it will also help me to grow this channel. Plus, it means that you won't miss anything. Thanks so much, and if you're already a subscriber, I truly appreciate your ongoing support. Now let's get back to the video.
Card number 4 looks at how Wendy can respond with clarity and strength. Wendy drew Justice. The literal meaning of justice is about legal issues. Wendy can use the court system to respond to her husband and children trying to destroy her. That would be by having them charged criminally or by filing some type of lawsuit. That would definitely send a message that she was serious about getting them to stop. I think it's more likely that her family initiated a court case that Wendy sees as trying to destroy her. It might be a messy divorce, or her ex is trying to sever her parental rights so that all of their dirty laundry is being aired in public. Justice is a card about balance, truth, and fairness. If Wendy wanted to look inward, Wendy can summon her inner strength and respond by taking a good look within herself and trying to figure out if she's done something to cause her ex and her children to want to destroy her. Is she completely innocent? I don't think so. Because if we go back to the Seven of Wands, we determine that her ex was a solid guy. The actions took him by surprise, and he's trying to defend himself. So I don't think that he is trying to destroy her without a good reason, and I think that Wendy bears a lot of responsibility for the situation. I always think of justice as being like Santa's naughty list. You get what you deserve. If Wendy's family is trying to destroy her for no good reason, the situation will be resolved to her advantage. However, if she has done things that make them want to destroy her, Wendy will get what she deserves. The sword in Justice's right hand represents cutting through issues to find the truth. It is a double-edged sword, which shows that actions have consequences. The sword is all about taking action to make sure that justice is realized. Her left hand is on the gold scales. This shows that logic must be balanced with intuition and emotion. Justice is logical and impartial and weighs both sides of an issue before she makes a decision. In summary, Wendy needs to respond by taking responsibility for her actions. She will get a just result. If she's innocent, things will be resolved in her favor and her family will face the consequences. If Wendy is guilty of things that her family is accusing her of, she will face the consequences for her actions. Card number 5 looks at the underlying issues that Wendy might not be aware of. Wendy drew the Five of Wands. This is a card about conflict. It tells me that even though Wendy's ex and her children appear to be united in their desire to destroy her, there is a lot of underlying conflict going on amongst them. Each person has their own reasons for their actions. In the Five of Wands, we see 5 adolescent boys fighting with their wands in the air. They are facing in different directions, and so are their wands. None of the wands seem to be touching each other or hurting anyone else. They all have different viewpoints, but they're not resolving anything. It's like they're viewing the fight as a game. They are focused on themselves and not looking at things from Wendy's point of view. This tells me that, although Wendy is viewing the situation as her ex and children all being out to destroy her, they all have their own reasons that could be quite selfish. I don't know what the issue with Wendy is. As I speculated in the first card, it could be something major, such as she had an affair or lost all of the family money due to a gambling addiction. Or it could be normal family power struggles, sibling rivalry, or just different experiences with Wendy as they were growing up. Wendy's children and her ex are all united in their desire to destroy her, but they all have different grievances. I'm the oldest of 4 kids that were born within 7 years. My siblings and I have often talked about how we had very different experiences with our parents. My parents will be 90 in a few months, and we still have very different relationships with them. We also remember situations very differently, as do my parents, and a lot of it had to do with perceived unfair treatment. For instance, I was the oldest and had a lot of responsibility. I don't recall my mom ever helping me with my homework, although I was an excellent student, and, even if she had time, her help wasn't required. A few years ago, I learned that, because my younger brother was not too interested in academics, my mom did much of his English homework for him, which I thought was incredibly unfair. Of course, now I have children of my own and understand that they have different skills and personalities, which makes it hard to make everything fair and equal, as well as the fact that my mom had far more time to spend with my younger brother because the rest of us were virtually grown up. But that's the kind of little stuff that can fester and cause resentment, especially if Wendy's kids are still young and not very mature. Wendy's ex and children will also have different experiences of bigger things that she may have done wrong. Let's say she was a workaholic and all 3 of her children resent her for this. Child number 1 recognizes that it taught them to be independent, which was a good thing. However, they've dealt with low self-esteem because they felt like their mother's work was more important than they were. Child number 2 was extremely proud of Wendy's accomplishments, but felt a great deal of pressure to succeed in everything they tried so they could live up to their mother's high standards. They've dealt with a lot of anxiety issues because they felt that perfection was the only way to be worthy of Wendy's attention. And child number 3 doesn't have anything positive to say about their mother. They are extremely resentful that Wendy missed important events, such as their piano recitals, volleyball games, or birthday parties, or constantly picked them up late from their friends' houses because she got involved in an important work project. And her ex is angry that he had to take on more than his share of parenting because Wendy is always at work. His self-esteem has taken a hit because he knows that Wendy valued work more than their relationship. So I think that Wendy is unaware of the many issues that caused a lot of pain in her family. She sees her job as providing her family with financial security and thinks her family has made too big of a deal about things that she missed. She doesn't realize that her family's attempt to destroy her was not a spontaneous decision. Her ex and her children have a lot of grievances that led up to this situation. Let's summarize. This reading was to answer Wendy's question, are my children and their father working together to destroy me? And the answer is yes, they are working together. I'm not sure that their goal is to destroy her, which is pretty subjective, but they are definitely unhappy. Card number 1, the Hanged Man, looks at the underlying motivation of Wendy's children's actions. They didn't like what Wendy's done, and their goal was to turn her world upside down. Card number 2, the 7 of Wands, looks at underlying motivations of Wendy's ex's actions. This card shows us that Wendy's ex is a good person and has a good reason for fighting Wendy. Regardless, he'd rather not be in this situation and would prefer that his family unit stay intact. Card number 3, the 10 of Swords, looks at how Wendy's children and their father's underlying motivations align or conflict with each other. I think their actions align and they're in agreement that she's done some pretty terrible stuff to them. Whatever these actions were, they are bad enough that they believe Wendy deserves to be destroyed. Card number 4, Justice, looks at how Wendy can respond with clarity and strength. I believe that it was some kind of legal issue that triggered Wendy's belief that her family was trying to destroy her. She can respond using the courts and fighting the charges or by filing her own lawsuits. She can also do some soul-searching and take responsibility for her actions. Things will get resolved fairly and either Wendy or her family will get what they deserve. Card number 5, the 5 of Wands, looks at the underlying issues that Wendy might not be aware of. And this is the amount of pain and conflict that her family is feeling about her. Although everybody has separate issues, what she sees as a rash decision that was designed to destroy her was based on a lot of hurt and conflict over the years. Her family has a lot of grievances and did not consider her side of the story. I hope this video will help you with your tarot readings. Please leave a comment if you'd like to share what you've learned. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.